Crescent Point Energy, the RANDLETT 3D geophysical operations under a new category called Best Practices.
Members of the board, good morning. My name is Cameron Kutch, and I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for Crescent Point Energy U.S. Corp. I'm joined today by Danielle Gavito, who is our regulatory team lead. I'll run through some corporate slides, and then Danielle will talk about the two nominations that we've received.
Could you just speak a little closer to the mic?
Sure, I'll bring it a little closer. Crescent Point, for those of you who don't know us, is a Canadian exploration production company that was formed in 2003. Our initial focus was Western Canada, but over time we've expanded into the U.S. with assets in North Dakota and the UINTA Basin, Utah. This here is just a snapshot of some key financial and operating data points. We're an oil-weighted, high netback, financially strong company with significant growth potential through the drill bit that also allows and provides an attractive and low risk yield. Crescent Point's business plan as the foundation of our company has remained intact since inception and has served us well in our growth. First, we develop and exploit our large, low-risk resource base and increase value through infill drilling, waterflood optimization, and improved technology. Second, we continue to grow and improve our asset base by acquiring high-quality, large resource in-place pools. And third, we manage risk by maintaining a strong balance sheet and continual hedging program, which is often very beneficial in difficult commodity price environments. Growth on all fronts. Crescent Point's growth over the last 12 years is nothing short of prolific. Measured success across all metrics: production, growth, reserve base, and funds flow. Our growth is supported by our focus reserve base that features large consolidated land positions within each. We established a position in the UINTA Basin in late 2012 with the acquisition of privately held UINTA Energy. Since the acquisition, our production in the UINTA has grown from 7,800 BOE per day to more than 15,000 BOE per day today. The map you see here reflects our entire UINTA Basin land holdings. We have more than 1,000 net drilling locations identified. We continue to be excited about the opportunity in UINTA, and in 2015 we've budgeted to spend approximately $155 million. We're currently running 2 rigs right now. This map is a zoom in on our RANDLETT area in the UINTA, with the green dots representing our 2015 drilling plan in the area. RANDLETT represents the heart of our Utah operations and is an area that is at the very early stages of realizing its full production potential. Crescent Point is very active in the community. We employ a little over 50 people in our Roosevelt office. We also employ thousands of contractors and subcontractors, and we are very proud of our corporate responsibility. Our 3 main pillars of support to the community are education, health, safety, and environment, and sports. We've continued to be a part of the UINTA Basin community, and we've contributed to a number of Utah universities and colleges to support students in the UINTA Basin. Environmental and safety. A reflection of that pride is demonstrated through our work to mitigate near and long-term impacts to the environment. Crescent Point places 40 cents per BOE produced, or about $17 million a year, into an abandonment reclamation fund to ensure that all resources to restore all of our existing sites to their natural state at the end of their productive lives. We also place another 30 cents per BOE, or almost $13 million a year, into a special fund to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, often beyond required regulated levels. And we have several ethical funds that actually invest in us because of this approach to protecting our environment. Track our water use, and we're always looking for ways to reduce our consumption and to reuse our water. And we have a right to refuse work policy for our workers to ensure that they're safe. So with that, I will let Danielle talk about the two projects that we were nominated for.
So the story of our RANDLETT 3D seismic project really begins with the acquisition in November of 2012 of Ute Energy's resources, which included assets in the RANDLETT Basin. When Crescent Point had a chance to kind of review what they had purchased, the decision was made by our geological team that additional scientific information was required. And the best way to gather that scientific information was through seismic imaging. So in July of 2013, the project was kicked off for permitting. Because the RANDLETT asset area has a very complex surface makeup, we knew it was going to be a protracted process to secure all the necessary permits. The project was going to cover roughly 141 square miles with about 90,000 acres within Duchesne and Uinta counties. That table below illustrates the necessary federal and state entities that we were going to require permits from. You'll notice that we have BIA and BLM as well as Bureau of Reclamation on there. Because of those federal agencies, we knew we were going to have to undergo some sort of NEPA analysis. For this project, it took the form of an environmental analysis. This map really highlights, again, the makeup of those surface owners, as well as brings in to note the private lands within the project area. This photo really hones in, again, to the southwest of the previous map. You can jump back to that. The BOR, which is the light green on the southwest side, and the pink, which is the Lower Duchesne Wetland Project area. Because of the required NEPA analysis, many resources had to be surveyed for, including ARC, paleo, as well as a variety of plant and wildlife species. We had 10 either federally listed as threatened and endangered or proposed threatened and endangered species. You'll notice in that table, flowers Penstemon is not among that list. It was determined to not be listed back in 2011, as was noted in Mr. Mingo's nomination letter. The intensive aspect of the required field surveys is illustrated in this photo. This is a team of biologists that are set about 3 feet apart, walking transects. And so for all of our federal surface, this is the groundwork that had to take place. A lot of foot miles logged on this project. In the summer of 2014, we were able to successfully navigate and secure a decision record and a finding of no significant impact for our project. This allowed the final pieces of the required permits to be approved. One of the considerations and committed measures that Crescent Point would adhere to going forward is the accompaniment of biological monitors with each of the Viber-sized crews. The Vibe trucks would travel along the source lines with biological monitors with them, so that in the year that had passed, since the actual ground surveys had taken place, if something new had sprouted or seeded and come up, they would be able to identify it and provide a workaround within the cleared corridors. This is flowers Penstemon. It is not a federally listed species, and as such, there is no federal protection for the plant. This illustrates the original concept design for our 3D seismic. The source lines are in red. Those are the avenues that the Viber-sized trucks would travel along, trending from the northeast to the southwest. The yellow squares are the receivers. Our receivers were geophones, which kind of look like ugly doorknobs that they stick in the ground and are hand placed. The green polygons on here were the unknown at the time Flowers Penstemon habitat. When Mr. Mingo approached Dawson Geophysical, who was our 3D contractor in the field, we were about 2/3 of the way through the project. And he came forward and said, hey, look, we just planted some new plants in this area, created some new sensitive habitats. Would you be willing to work with us to avoid those areas? We were able to adjust the design really on the fly to relocate both source and receiver lines to completely avoid any surface disturbance to those new areas. This illustrates a really simplified version of the previous slide. This shows where the Vibe trucks actually traveled, not only on source, but other cleared maybe 2 tracks in the area. Again, there was 0 disturbance to those newly identified areas, including we did not use an existing dirt road that you can see towards the lower middle of that polygon. If you haven't had the opportunity to visit the RANDLETT area out in the UINTA Basin, we wanted to provide kind of a scope of what this project looked like. You can see it's vast, very far-reaching, with, in the foreground, some clear illustrations of topographical challenges that we had to work with. In summary, we were able, again, 2/3 of the way through an active field acquisition to adjust our project to avoid any sort of surface disturbance to recently developed sensitive habitat. We believe in being a good neighbor with all of the stakeholders on our projects and are glad to work on developing continued relationships with those groups and have the opportunity to collaborate so that everyone's desires and needs are met. And we believe that by continuing to work on those communications and relationships, creative thinking outside of the box, how do we avoid the habitat but not have a hole in our data? We were able to move both source and receiver to the outer perimeters of the sensitive polygon, undershoot that same area so that the data was still there. We didn't have a hole, and he didn't have squished plants, for a more technical way of saying it. We came up with a solution that benefited everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you very much. Question?
Did that degrade the quality of your data at all by leaving that big of a skip?
Actually, the data is still being processed, but our initial look at the data is indicating there has not been a detriment to the project. The budget for this project was $13 million. It took probably an extra couple of 3 days to figure out how to relocate and stack source points around there to still comply, but there has not been at this time any detriment to the data.
Did you have to do longer offsets to get data underneath that skip?
We didn't. It was the way in which the stacked source points were aligned that allowed for a still comprehensive array to take place.
Thank you.
Yeah.